There's a guy from Canada driving through US and an American guy driving in the opposite direction. In the middle of the night, with no other cars on the road, they hit each other head-on, and both cars go flying off in different directions. The American fella manages to climb out of his car and survey the damages. He looks at his twisted car and says, "Oh my God, I am really lucky to be alive." Likewise, an Canadian guy scrambles out of his car and looks at his wreckage. He too says to himself, "I can't believe I survived this wreck." The Canadian walks over to the American and says, "Hey man, I think this is a sign from God that we should put away our petty differences and live as friends instead of such rivals." An American guy thinks for a moment and says, "You know, you're absolutely right. We should be friends. Now I'm going to see what else survived the wreck." So the American pops open his trunk and finds a full, unopened bottle of Paddy Power's whiskey. He says to the Canada fella, "I think this is another sign from God that we toast to our newfound understanding and friendship." The Canadian guy says, "You're damn right," and he grabs the bottle and starts sucking down the whiskey. After putting away nearly half the bottle, the Canadian hands it back to the American fella and says, "Your turn." The American guy twists the cap back on the bottle and says, "Oh, I think I'll wait for the police to show up." There once was a farmer who was raising 3 daughters on his own. He was very concerned about their well-being and always did his best to watch out for them. As they entered the late teens, the girls dated, and on this particular evening, all 3 of his girls were going out on a date. This was the first time this had occurred. As was his custom, he would greet the young suitor at the door holding his shotgun, not necessarily to menace or threaten, but merely to ensure that the young man knew who was boss. The doorbell rang, and the first of the boys arrived. Father answered the door, and the lad said, "Hi, my name's Joe. I'm here for Flo. We're going to the show. Is she ready to go?" The father looked him over and sent the kids on their way. The next lad arrived and said, "My name's Eddie. I'm here for Betty. We're going to get some spaghetti. Is she ready?" Father felt this one was okay too, so off the 2 kids went. The final young man arrived, and the farmer opened the door. The boy started off, "Hi, my name's Chuck," and the farmer shot him. A huge muscular man walks into a bar and orders a beer. The bartender hands him the beer and says, "You know, I'm not gay, but I want to compliment you on your physique. It really is phenomenal. I have a question though. Why is your head so small?" The big guy nods slowly. He's obviously fielded this question many times. One day, he begins, "I was hunting when I got lost in the woods. I heard someone crying for help and finally realized that it was coming from a frog sitting next to a stream. So I picked up the frog and it said, 'Kiss me and I will turn into a genie and grant you 3 wishes.' So I looked around to make sure I was alone and gave the frog a kiss. Poof! The frog turned into a beautiful, voluptuous, naked woman. She said, 'You now have 3 wishes.' I looked down at my scrawny 115-pound body and said, 'I want a body like Arnold Schwarzenegger.' She nodded, whispered a spell, and poof! There I was, so huge that I ripped out of my clothes and was standing there naked. She then asked, 'What will be your second wish?' I looked hungrily at her beautiful body and replied, 'I want to make sensuous love with you here by this stream.' She nodded, laid down, and beckoned to me. We then made love for hours. Later, as we lay there next to each other, sweating from our glorious lovemaking, she whispered into my ear, 'You know, you do have one more wish. What will it be?' I looked at her and replied, 'How about a little head?'" A blonde walks into a bank in New York City and asks for the loan officer. She says she's going to Europe on business for 2 weeks and needs to borrow $5,000. The bank officer says the bank will need some kind of security for the loan, so the blonde hands over the keys to a new Rolls-Royce. The car is parked on the street. In front of the bank, she has the title, and everything checks out. The bank agrees to accept the car as collateral for the loan. The bank's president and its officers all enjoy a good laugh at the blonde for using a $250,000 Rolls as collateral against a $5,000 loan. An employee of the bank then proceeds to drive the Rolls into the bank's underground garage and parks it there. 2 weeks later, the blonde returns, repays the $5,000 and the interest, which comes to $30. The loan officer says, "Miss, we are very happy to have had your business, and this transaction has worked out very nicely, but we are a little puzzled. While you were away, we checked you out and found that you are a multimillionaire. What puzzles us is, why would you bother to borrow $5,000? The blonde replies, "Where else in New York City can I park my car for 2 weeks for only $30 and expect it to be there when I return?" On a chain of beautiful deserted islands in the middle of nowhere, the following people are stranded: 2 Italian men and 1 Italian woman, 2 French men and 1 French woman, 2 German men and 1 German woman, 2 Greek men and 1 Greek woman, 2 British men and 1 British woman, 2 Bulgarian men and 1 Bulgarian woman, 2 Japanese men and 1 Japanese woman, 2 Vietnamese men and 1 Vietnamese woman, 2 Irish men and 1 Irish woman, 2 American men and 1 American woman. 1 month later, on these absolutely stunning deserted islands in the middle of nowhere, the following things have occurred. 1 Italian man killed the other Italian man for the Italian woman. The 2 French men and the French woman are living happily together in a ménage à trois. The 2 German men have a strict weekly schedule of alternating visits with the German woman. The 2 Greek men are sleeping together, and the Greek woman is cooking and cleaning for them. The 2 British men are waiting for someone to introduce them to the British woman. The 2 Bulgarian men took one look at the Bulgarian woman and started swimming to another island. The 2 Japanese have faxed Tokyo and are awaiting instructions. The 2 Vietnamese men have set up a pharmacy, liquor store, restaurant, and laundry and have gotten the woman pregnant in order to supply employees for their stores. The 2 Irish men divided the island into north and south and set up a distillery. They do not remember if sex is in the picture because it gets somewhat foggy after a few liters of coconut whiskey. However, they're satisfied because the English aren't having any fun. The 2 American men are contemplating suicide because the American woman will not shut up and complains relentlessly about her body, the true nature of feminism, what the sun is doing to her skin, how she can do anything they can do, the necessity of fulfillment, the equal division of household chores, how sand and palm trees make her look fat, how her last boyfriend respected her opinion and treated her nicer than they do, and how her relationship with her mother is the root cause of all her problems. And why didn't they bring a cell phone so she could call 911 and get them all rescued off this godforsaken deserted island in the middle of freaking nowhere so she can get her nails done and go shopping? My friends, if you want to watch other funny jokes, subscribe to the channel.